The moment I saw Justin Bieber step out of his black SUV, I knew I had exactly 15 seconds to change my family's life. My hands trembled, clutching the handwritten letter explaining our desperate situation, medical bills piling up, eviction, notice taped to our door, and my daughter's ongoing cancer treatments. I'd never begged anyone for anything in my 43 years of life, but when you're a father with nowhere else to turn, pride becomes a luxury you can't afford. The crowd surged forward, screaming fans pressing against the velvet ropes, and I felt myself being pushed back, my one chance slipping away. That's when I did something I'm not proud of. I shouted words that cut through the chaos, words about my daughter fighting for her life while I fought against bankruptcy. Bieber's security moved toward me, but then something unexpected happened. The pop star's eyes met mine, and in that split second I saw something shift in his expression. What happened next would not only save my family from financial ruin, but would completely transform the path of my life in ways I could never have imagined. And the most surprising part? It wasn't about the money at all. If you've ever wondered what truly happens when ordinary desperation meets extraordinary privilege, stay with me, because this story isn't what you think. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across downtown Los Angeles, highlighting every crack in the sidewalk, as Michael Ramirez trudged home from his third job of the day. His shoulders slumped under an invisible weight, heavier than the backpack containing his janitorial uniform. The smell of street tacos from a nearby vendor mingled with car exhaust, reminding him that he hadn't eaten since the stale donut at his morning shift at the convenience store. Michael's phone vibrated in his pocket. Another call from the hospital, billing department. His stomach clenched as he silenced it, knowing he'd have to face them eventually. The medical bills from his daughter Sophia's leukemia treatments had reached $347,000, an astronomical sum that seemed to mock his 14-per-hour wage. Despite insurance, the co-pays and deductibles alone had drained his savings, maxed out his credit, cards, and left him 3 months behind on rent. As he approached his apartment building, a faded yellow structure wedged between newer developments, Michael noticed a bright orange paper taped to his door. His heart sank. The final eviction. Notice. They had 72 hours to vacate. Inside, his mother-in-law was caring for Sophia, now in remission but still weak, and his teenage son Diego, who had given up his after-school activities to help with his sister. Michael crumpled against the wall outside, not wanting his family to see him break. The weight of failure pressed against his chest until he could barely breathe. He'd always been the provider, the fixer, the rock. Now he was the reason they might end up homeless. As tears threatened to spill, Michael's gaze fell on a discarded celebrity magazine on the ground. Justin Bieber's face smiled back at him from the cover, announcing the singer's arrival in Los Angeles for a charity event at the Beverly Hills Hotel tomorrow night. Michael stared at the image, an impossible idea forming in his desperate mind. What did he have to lose? He was already losing everything anyway. Dawn broke over Los Angeles with indifferent beauty, painting the smog-laden sky in hues of pink and orange. Michael sat at their small kitchen table, the surface cluttered with past-due notices and medical forms, all demanding money he didn't have. The apartment was quiet except for the gentle hum of the refrigerator and the distant sound of his daughter's breathing machine. His fingers, calloused from years of manual labor, trembled slightly as he wrote on a piece of notebook paper torn from Diego's school supplies. The letter to Justin Bieber felt both ridiculous and necessary, a Hail Mary pass when the game was all but lost. Michael wasn't asking for a handout. He was proposing to work for the singer in any capacity. Security, assistant driver, anything to earn enough to keep his family afloat and maintain Sophia's crucial follow-up care. "Dad, what are you doing up so early?" Diego's voice startled him. At 16, his son had the lanky frame of a boy transforming into a man too quickly. "Just writing something important," Michael said, folding the letter hastily. "Another job." "Application?" Diego asked, his young face serious beyond his years. Michael hesitated, ashamed to admit the truth. "Something like that." Diego placed a hand on his father's shoulder. "I could drop out, get a full-time job. Mrs. Gonzalez said her brother's garage needs help." "No," Michael's voice was firm. Your education comes first, always. The thought of his brilliant son sacrificing his future because of their circumstances made his chest ache. Later that morning, after seeing Diego off to school and checking on Sofia, Michael changed into his only decent outfit, a navy button-down shirt and khaki pants he kept for job interviews, and headed to the Beverly Hills hotel. The bus ride from East LA to Beverly Hills was like traveling between worlds. From crowded streets lined with discount stores and taco stands to manicured boulevards with luxury boutiques. As the hotel came into view, its pink facade gleaming in the California sun, Michael's resolve wavered. Security guards monitored the entrance, and a small group of fans had already gathered, hoping for a glimpse of the celebrities arriving for tonight's event. How would he, a middle-aged maintenance worker, ever get close enough to deliver his letter? But then he thought of the eviction notice, of Sofia's medical needs, of Diego's offer to drop out of school. Drawing a deep breath that smelled of wealth and privilege so far from his reality, Michael approached the hotel, his desperate plan the only hope he had left. Subscribe now to find out how Michael overcomes these seemingly impossible odds. Our stories of courage in the face of adversity continue every week. The afternoon stretched into evening as Michael waited near the hotel's side entrance, where staff had informed him, after several polite but firm rejections, that celebrities sometimes entered to avoid crowds. His feet ached from standing for hours, his stomach empty save for a cup of coffee he'd nursed at a nearby cafe to justify sitting in their air conditioning. The golden California sunset gave way to the electric glow of Beverly Hills at night. The temperature dropped, and Michael shivered slightly in his thin shirt, clutching his letter like a talisman. Doubt crept in with the evening chill. Was he wasting precious time when he should be looking for another job, another loan, another solution? His phone vibrated, a text from his mother-in-law. "Sofia asking for you, when will you be home?" Guilt twisted in his gut. He'd told them he was following up on a job lead, not wanting to share his desperate scheme. Just as Michael considered giving up, a flurry of activity erupted at the entrance. Black SUVs with tinted windows pulled up, and security personnel materialized, forming a human corridor. Through gaps between suited bodies, Michael caught glimpses of designer clothes and camera flashes. His heart hammered against his ribs as he recognized Justin Bieber's distinctive profile emerging from the second vehicle. It was now or never. Michael moved forward, his body on autopilot, squeezing between onlookers who had gathered at the commotion. A security guard stepped in his path, arm extended like a barrier. "Sir, you need to step back." "Please," Michael said, his voice tight with desperation. "I just need to give him this." He held up his letter, the paper crumpled from being clutched for hours. The guard's expression hardened. "Step back now." Something broke inside Michael, the dam holding back months of fear, frustration, and helplessness. "My daughter has leukemia," he shouted, loud enough to cut through the ambient noise. "We're being evicted in 3 days. I'm not asking for a handout, I'm asking for work." Several heads turned. The security guard grabbed Michael's arm, preparing to escort him away, when a voice called out, "Wait." The command, casual yet authoritative, came from Justin Bieber himself, who had paused on his way inside. The singer, dressed in designer, streetwear that probably cost more than Michael's monthly rent, studied him with curious eyes. "Let him through," Bieber said to his security team, who exchanged uncertain glances before reluctantly creating a small path. Michael approached, suddenly aware of his worn shoes and the stubble on his face he hadn't had time to shave. Up close, Bieber seemed both younger and older than his media presence, a contradiction of boyish features and eyes that had seen more of the world than most. "What's your name, man?" Bieber asked, surprisingly gentle. "Michael Ramirez, sir." The "sir" slipped out automatically, though the singer was nearly 2 decades his junior. "And that's for me?" Bieber nodded toward the letter. Michael handed it over, his hands embarrassingly unsteady. "Yes, it's about my situation, my daughter's medical bills. I'm looking for work, any work. I can drive, provide security, clean, anything." Bieber unfolded the letter, scanning it quickly. As his entourage shifted impatiently around them, Michael held his breath, acutely aware of the surreal tableau they created. a pop icon and a desperate father standing in a bubble of temporary stillness amid chaos. After what seemed like an eternity, Bieber refolded the letter and slipped it into his jacket pocket. His expression was unreadable. "I've got meetings all night," he said finally. "But come back tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Ask for Carl at the front desk." He gestured to a tall man beside him, presumably his manager or assistant. "He'll make sure they let you in." Before Michael could respond, the entourage moved forward, sweeping Bieber into the hotel and leaving Michael standing alone, stunned, as the heavy glass doors swung shut. Had that really just happened? Was this a genuine opportunity or a celebrity's empty gesture to avoid a scene? Michael stood frozen, hope and skepticism warring within him as the night air carried the distant sound of Los Angeles traffic and the faint scent of possibility. The Beverly Hills hotel lobby gleamed with marble and old Hollywood glamour, making Michael achingly aware of his second-hand clothes and scuffed shoes. He'd woken at dawn, showered meticulously, and borrowed Diego's hair gel in an attempt to look presentable. Now at precisely 9 a.m. he approached the front desk, heart pounding. "I'm Michael Ramirez. I'm supposed to ask for Carl?" His voice sounded foreign to his own ears, strained with nervous tension. The receptionist, a polished young woman with a practiced smile, made a discreet call. Minutes later, the tall man Michael recognized from yesterday appeared, dressed in an impeccable suit that probably cost more than Michael's car. "Mr. Ramirez," Carl said, extending his hand. "Follow me, please." They rode the elevator in silence to the top floor. Michael tried to calm his breathing, wiping sweaty palms against his pants. Carl led him to a suite at the end of a plush corridor and knocked briefly before opening the door. The suite was spacious and bright, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Los Angeles. Justin Bieber sat at a glass dining table, casually dressed in a white t-shirt and basketball shorts, scrolling through his phone. Several half-eaten breakfast plates surrounded him, along with a laptop and scattered papers. "He's here," Carl announced before stepping back. Bieber looked up, recognition flickering across his face. "Michael, right? The dad from yesterday." He gestured to an empty chair. Sit. Down, man, you want coffee?" "Yes, please," Michael said, taking the offered seat, feeling as though he'd stepped into an alternate reality. Carl poured him coffee from an elegant carafe and then quietly left the room. Michael wrapped his hands around the warm cup, anchoring himself to something tangible in this surreal situation. "I read your letter again last night," Bieber began, setting down his phone. "Your daughter, Sophia, right? How is she doing now?" The genuine interest in the question caught Michael off guard. "She's in remission. The doctors are optimistic, but she needs ongoing care, medications." He trailed off, not wanting to launch immediately into his financial woes. Bieber nodded thoughtfully. "Look, I get a lot of people asking for money, like every day. Most of the time, Carl handles it. Donations, foundations, that kind of thing." He leaned forward. "But your letter was different. You weren't asking for a handout, you were asking for work." "Yes," Michael said, his voice steadier now. "I've worked hard all my life. I don't want charity." "I respect that," Bieber said, surprising Michael with his earnestness. "Here's the thing, though. I don't actually need another driver or security guy. My team's been with me for years." Michael's hope deflated visibly. "But," Bieber continued, "I read that you used to be in construction before you got laid off, that you managed teams." Michael nodded, wondering how the singer had gleaned that detail from his hastily written letter. "I've got this project," Bieber said, pulling his laptop closer. "I bought some properties in LA's East Side to develop into affordable housing, but the project manager I hired isn't working out. He doesn't understand the community, and we're getting pushback from locals." He turned the laptop toward Michael, showing plans for a multi-unit residential complex in a neighborhood not far from Michael's own apartment. "You know these communities, you live there, you speak Spanish, you have management experience." Bieber sat back. "I could use someone like you to help make this project work, someone who can talk to the residents, understand their concerns, and make sure we're building something that actually helps people instead of just looking good on paper." Michael stared at the screen, trying to process what he was hearing. "Cayos to want me to work on this project?" "As what exactly?" as the community liaison, working directly with my development team. Bieber named a monthly salary that made Michael blink twice to ensure he'd heard correctly. It was more than double what he currently made across all 3 jobs. "This isn't charity," Bieber added, seeming to read Michael's thoughts. "This is business. I need this project to succeed, and I need someone who can help make that happen. The salary is standard for the position." Michael took a sip of coffee, buying time to collect his thoughts. The opportunity seemed too perfect, too providential to be real. "Why me?" he finally asked. "You don't know anything about me." Bieber's expression turned reflective. "When I was a kid, my mom struggled to make rent. We used food banks. People helped us when we needed it, but they did it in a way that let my mom keep her dignity." He shrugged. "Maybe I'm just paying it forward." If you're enjoying this story, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next episode. The journey of Michael and Justin is just beginning to unfold in unexpected ways. The bus ride back to East Los Angeles was a blur of conflicting emotions for Michael. The job offer from Justin Bieber, complete with health insurance that would cover Sophia's remaining treatments, felt like a miracle. Yet something gnawed at him, a stubborn pride that questioned whether he was accepting charity disguised as employment. The neighborhood came into view through the bus window. Laundromats, discount stores, murals celebrating Latino culture, and streets where he'd lived his entire life. Michael had grown up believing in self-reliance, that a man provided for his family through the sweat of his brow. Accepting help, especially from a celebrity who lived in a world so different from his own, felt like admitting defeat. As Michael entered the apartment, the familiar sounds and smells of home enveloped him. His mother-in-law's cooking, Sophia's cartoon show playing softly, Diego's music filtering through the thin walls. They all looked up as he entered, their faces a mixture of curiosity and concern. "Papa," Sophia called from the couch, her small body still thin from treatments, but her smile as bright as ever. At 8 years old, she understood more about their situation than Michael wished she did. "How did the job interview go?" his mother-in-law asked in Spanish, wiping her hands on her apron. Since his wife Maria's death 3 years ago, Carmen had been his rock, helping raise the children while he worked multiple jobs. Michael kissed Sophia's forehead before sitting heavily at the kitchen table. "It wasn't exactly an interview," he admitted, then hesitantly began explaining the events of the past 2 days. Diego's eyes widened as Justin Bieber's name entered the story. "You actually met him, for real?" "Focus, Diego," Carmen chided. "Your father is talking about something important." As Michael described the job offer, Carmen's expression shifted from skepticism to cautious hope. Diego, however, grew increasingly animated. "This is insane, Dad. Do you know how many people would kill for this opportunity? And the salary, we could move somewhere better, I could go to college." "We're not moving," Michael interrupted firmly. "And this arrangement, it still doesn't feel right." Carmen studied him knowingly. "Your pride is talking, Miguel, not your common sense." She sat across from him, her eyes soft but determined. "Would you rather keep your pride and lose this apartment, make Sophia miss her treatments, force Diego to drop out of school?" Her words struck him like physical blows. "It's not about pride," Michael insisted, though even to his own ears, the protest sounded hollow. "What if this is just some celebrity's whim? What if he changes his mind in a month? We'd be right back where we started." "Then we'd be right back where we are now," Carmen countered logically, "but with 1 month of good salary and health insurance behind us." From the couch, Sophia's small voice piped up. "Is Mr. Bieber going to help us stay in our house, Papa?" The simple question from his daughter cut through Michael's tangled thoughts. He looked at her, pale but resilient, a fighter who had faced far worse challenges than his wounded pride. Later that night, after the children were asleep, Michael sat alone on their small balcony, staring at the city lights. His phone displayed Carl's number, which he'd been given to confirm his decision. His thumb hovered over the call button as memories washed over him. He remembered his late wife Maria telling him, "Sometimes the strongest thing a person can do is accept help when it's offered." She had been referring to her own cancer diagnosis, encouraging him to let friends and family support them. Michael hadn't listened then, trying to shoulder everything himself, potentially missing precious time with her in her final months. Was he making the same mistake again? The realization was like cold water to his face. This wasn't just about him. His children deserved a father who could put their needs above his ego. With a deep breath, Michael pressed the call button. "Hello, this is Michael Ramirez," he said when Carl answered. "I'd like to accept the position." The East Los Angeles Community Center buzzed with tension as Michael stood beside architectural renderings of the proposed housing development. Residents packed the room, elderly couples who had lived in the neighborhood for decades, young families squeezed into overpriced apartments, community activists eyeing the presentation with skepticism. The scent of coffee and conchas from the refreshment table mingled with the distinct smell of distrust. It had been 3 weeks since Michael had accepted Justin Bieber's job offer, and today marked his first major test, presenting the revised housing project to the community, and more importantly, listening to their concerns. Carl stood at the back of the room observing but letting Michael take the lead. "I understand your suspicions," Michael said in Spanish, addressing an elderly woman who had just voiced concerns about gentrification. He then repeated in English for the benefit of everyone present. "3 months ago, I would have been sitting where you are, worried that another developer was coming to push us out of our homes." He gestured to the plans. "But this project is different. 80% of the units will be reserved for current neighborhood residents at rent-controlled prices. The remaining 20% will be market rate to help finance the property's upkeep without raising your rents." A young man with a Protect East LA t-shirt stood up. "We've heard promises before. What makes this any different? And why should we trust some celebrity who probably couldn't even find this neighborhood on a map?" The question hung in the air, direct and challenging. Michael felt Carl shift uncomfortably at the back of the room, but he knew this moment required honesty, not corporate spin. "You shouldn't trust promises," Michael agreed, surprising the crowd. "I don't. What convinced me was seeing the legally binding agreements being drawn up to protect residents' rights. Those documents will be available for community review next week. As for Mr. Bieber's involvement," Michael paused, choosing his words carefully. "I was skeptical too. But I've come to believe he's genuine in wanting to create housing that actually serves communities like ours." The meeting continued for hours, with Michael listening more than speaking. He noted every concern, promised nothing he couldn't deliver, and committed to bringing community representatives into the planning process. By the time the gathering concluded, the mood had shifted from hostile to cautiously optimistic. As the last residents filed out, Carl approached, an approving expression on his usually impassive face. "Bieber was right about you," he said. "You bridged a gap our previous team couldn't even identify." Michael gathered his notes, a mixture of exhaustion and satisfaction washing over him. "I just spoke to them like neighbors, not statistics." "That's exactly why you're valuable," Carl replied. "The car's waiting to take you to your next meeting." The next meeting was at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center, where Sophia had her monthly checkup. One of the unexpected benefits of Michael's new position was the flexibility to schedule work around his daughter's medical appointments. As the sleek company car navigated through Los Angeles traffic, Michael's phone buzzed with a message from Justin. "How'd the community meeting go?" The casual text still felt surreal. Over the past weeks, Michael had discovered that beyond the celebrity persona, Justin Bieber was deeply involved in his business ventures and surprisingly down-to-earth in their interactions. Michael typed back, "Better than expected. They're cautious but willing to talk. Sending you the main concerns we need to address." The response came quickly. "Awesome. I'm back in LA next week. Let's meet and go through them. BTW, tell Sophia I said hi." That simple addition made Michael smile. Justin had met Sophia briefly during a video call and had seemed genuinely charmed by her straightforward questions about his tattoos and song lyrics. At the hospital, Michael found Sophia and Carmen already in the waiting room. Sophia's face lit up when she saw him. "Papa, you made it!" Her delight at seeing him at her appointment, something that would have been impossible with his previous jobs, made the morning's challenges worthwhile. Later, as the doctor reviewed Sophia's latest results, Michael held his breath. The oncologist smiled, pointing to the clear scans. Still in remission, and her blood work looks excellent. The new medication seems to be working well with minimal side effects. Relief flooded through Michael. The comprehensive health insurance that came with his new job covered treatments and medications that had previously been financially out of reach. As they left the hospital, Sophia skipping slightly ahead with Carmen, Michael's phone buzzed again. This time it was Diego. "Dad, got my SAT scores back. Mr. Harrison says they're good enough for UCLA. Michael stopped in his tracks, overwhelmed by sudden emotion. For years, college had seemed like an impossible dream for Diego, despite his intelligence and hard work. Now, with Michael's new salary and the scholarship opportunities his son's scores might open up, it had become a real possibility. Standing in the California sunshine, watching his daughter's recovered strength and reading his son's excited message, Michael felt something he hadn't experienced in a long time: hope. Not just for survival, but for his family to truly thrive. And it had all begun with a desperate letter and an unexpected act of compassion that was proving to be much more than a celebrity's passing whim. The sleek Beverly Hills restaurant hummed with quiet conversation and the gentle clink of expensive cutlery against fine china. Michael shifted uncomfortably in his seat, still not accustomed to establishments where the menu had no prices, and the waitstaff wore suits nicer than anything in his closet. Across from him, Justin Bieber seemed perfectly at ease, though he'd dressed casually in designer jeans and a simple black sweater. "The community feedback is mostly positive now," Michael reported, sliding a tablet across the table with the latest project metrics. 6 months had passed since their first meeting, and the East LA housing development was progressing ahead of schedule. Construction begins next month, and we've already got applications from local families for over 60% of the units. Justin nodded, scanning the data with more careful attention than most people would expect from the pop star. "That's great, man, really great." He handed back the tablet. "And how are things at home? Sophia doing okay?" The genuine interest still surprised Michael. Over the months, Justin had shown consistent concern for Michael's family, occasionally sending gifts for the children or asking for updates on Sophia's health. "She's doing well. Back in school full-time now." Michael smiled, the worry that had been his constant companion for years finally beginning to ease. "Diego's been accepted to 3 colleges so far, still waiting to hear from UCLA." "That's awesome," Justin said, his enthusiasm genuine. "Kid's smart. Gets that from his dad." Michael was about to respond when he noticed Justin's expression change, his eyes focusing on something over Michael's shoulder. The singer's face shifted subtly, a practiced smile replacing his natural one as he raised a hand in greeting. Turning, Michael saw a group of people approaching, industry executives by the look of their expensive suits and confident bearing. Justin stood to greet them, effortlessly sliding into his public persona, all charm and easy charisma. "Justin, baby." A silver-haired man in his 60s embraced him. "Didn't know you'd be here today. Perfect timing. We need to discuss the Asian tour dates." "Sure, Ray, but I'm in a meeting right now," Justin replied, gesturing to Michael. Ray gave Michael a cursory glance, clearly dismissing him as unimportant. "Business can wait. This is about your career, kid." He placed a proprietary hand on Justin's shoulder. "The Singapore venue just doubled their offer." Michael stood, recognizing the intrusion. "I should go. We can finish this later." "No, stay," Justin insisted, a flash of something, annoyance? Vulnerability, crossing his features. "Ray, this is Michael Ramirez. He runs my East LA housing development." Ray barely acknowledged the introduction, already launching into tour logistics. 2 other executives pulled up chairs, effectively hijacking the lunch. Michael sat silently as the conversation swirled around contracts, percentages, and publicity opportunities, none of which included him. Throughout the exchange, Michael observed Justin with new eyes. The singer's body language had changed completely. There was a tension in his shoulders, a guardedness that hadn't been present minutes before. He laughed at Ray's jokes, but the sound rang hollow compared to the genuine laughter Michael had heard when Justin was video chatting with Sophia. "We need you in Tokyo by the 15th, no exceptions," Ray was saying. "The label's invested too much in this release to compromise on the promo schedule." "I've got the charity event for kids with cancer on the 17th, Justin countered. "I promised. I'd be there." Ray waved a dismissive hand. "We'll send a video message, same impact, less hassle." "It's not the same," Justin began, but Ray cut him off. "Justin, baby, this is business. Those kids'll understand. You're making millions that help fund those charities, right?" He turned to the others. "Remember when we had to drag him away from that hospital visit in Chicago? Kid would spend all day with sick fans if we let him." The group laughed as if this was an endearing quirk rather than basic human compassion. Justin's smile remained fixed, but Michael caught the slight clench of his jaw. Eventually, the executives departed with backslaps and promises to touch base soon. As their voices faded, Justin seemed to physically deflate, rubbing his temples. "Sorry about that," he said quietly. "No problem," Michael replied, though he was troubled by what he'd witnessed. "Do you need to reschedule?" Justin shook his head. "No, man, I'm just..." He trailed off, then surprised Michael by asking, "Do you ever feel like nobody sees the real you? Like everyone's got this idea of who you are, and it has nothing to do with who you actually are?" The unexpected vulnerability in the question caught Michael off guard. For months, he'd thought of Justin as the fortunate one in their relationship, the wealthy celebrity with everything at his fingertips. Yet sitting across from him now, Michael recognized something familiar in his expression: isolation. "Sometimes," Michael answered honestly. "After Maria died, everyone treated me like I was made of glass. They stopped seeing me as Michael and only saw the widower with 2 kids. It was like I'd become a walking tragedy instead of a person." Justin nodded slowly, understanding in his eyes. "I've been Justin Bieber since I was 13. Sometimes I don't even know where that ends and I begin." He glanced around the restaurant. "These people, they see dollar signs, not a person. My fans see a fantasy. The public sees whatever narrative is trending that week." Michael considered this. "So who does see the real you?" A sad smile crossed Justin's face. "My mom, a couple of childhood friends, not many others." He hesitated. "That's why this housing project matters to me. It's something real, something that helps actual people, not just the Justin Bieber brand." The confession shifted something fundamental in Michael's perception. He'd accepted Justin's help, worked alongside him for months, but had still kept him categorized as celebrity benefactor, a one-dimensional figure rather than a complex human being with his own struggles. "For what it's worth," Michael said carefully, "my kids see you as a real person. Especially Sophia. She told me she likes that you answer her questions instead of talking to her like she's just a sick kid." Justin's expression brightened genuinely at this. "Sophia's awesome. Smartest 8-year-old I've ever met." The conversation turned back to the housing project, but something had changed between them. A new layer of understanding that transcended their initial benefactor-recipient dynamic. As they parted ways outside the restaurant, Michael realized that what had begun as a desperate plea for help had evolved into something neither of them had expected. A friendship built on mutual respect and the shared experience of being seen for who they truly were. Like this story? Hit subscribe now to see how Michael and Justin's relationship continues to evolve and transform both their lives. The autumn sunlight filtered through the leaves of palm trees, casting dappled shadows on the outdoor cafe table where Michael sat reviewing building permits. The past 9 months had transformed his life in ways he could never have predicted. The housing project was not only proceeding smoothly, but had gained national attention as a model for celebrity-funded community development that actually served community needs. "Mr. Ramirez," a hesitant voice interrupted his concentration. Michael looked up to see a young Latino man, perhaps 20 years old, clutching a folder and shifting nervously from foot to foot. "Yes, I'm Eduardo Vasquez. I applied for the internship with the East LA Housing Project. Mr. Bieber's office said I should meet you here." Michael set aside his papers, gesturing for Eduardo to sit. He vaguely recalled approving the internship program but had left the details to HR. "Tell me about yourself, Eduardo." As the young man began speaking, about growing up in the same neighborhoods where they were building, about his community college courses in urban planning, about his dreams of creating affordable housing throughout Los Angeles, Michael experienced a strange sense of déjà vu. Eduardo's passion and determination reminded him of himself at that age, before life's hardships had tempered his ambitions. "Why this project specifically?" Michael asked when Eduardo paused for breath. Eduardo's expression turned earnest. "Because you guys are actually listening to the community instead of steamrolling over it. My abuela's been to every community meeting, and she says it's the first time developers have treated residents like people instead of obstacles." Michael smiled, making a mental note to thank Justin for this unexpected opportunity to pay forward the chance he'd been given. Later that afternoon, Michael arrived at the recording studio where Justin had asked to meet. It was an unusual location for their project discussions, but Justin had texted that he was on a tight schedule and couldn't leave the session. The security guard recognized Michael, nodding him through to a lounge area where Carl stood typing on his phone. "He's just finishing up," Carl explained, leading Michael down a hallway to a control room filled with sound equipment and screens. Through the glass, Justin was in the recording booth, headphones on, completely absorbed in the music only he could hear. Michael watched, fascinated by this glimpse into another side of Justin's life. The singer's expression was intense, with concentration as he listened to playback, occasionally stopping the engineer to request adjustments. This was Justin in his element, not the celebrity persona Michael had first encountered, but an artist dedicated to his craft. When Justin finally emerged from the booth, he greeted Michael with their now customary fist bump. "Sorry for the weird meeting spot. Schedule's insane this week." "No problem," Michael assured him. "I hired the first intern today." Justin's face lit up. "The scholarship program? That's awesome. What's the kid like?" As they discussed Eduardo and the internship initiative, Justin's idea to create pathways for local youth into urban development careers, Michael noticed the singer seemed unusually energized despite the long studio. Witnessed. "Do you need to reschedule?" Justin shook his head. "No, man, I'm just..." He trailed off, then surprised Michael by asking, "Do you ever feel like nobody sees the real you? Like everyone's got this idea of who you are, and it has nothing to do with who you actually are?" The unexpected vulnerability in the question caught Michael off guard. For months, he'd thought of Justin as the fortunate one in their relationship, the wealthy celebrity with everything at his fingertips. Yet sitting across from him now, Michael recognized something familiar in his expression: isolation. "Sometimes," Michael answered honestly. "After Maria died, everyone treated me like I was made of glass. They stopped seeing me as Michael and only saw the widower with 2 kids. It was like I'd become a walking tragedy instead of a person." Justin nodded slowly, understanding in his eyes. "I've been Justin Bieber since I was 13. Sometimes I don't even know where that ends and I begin." He glanced around the restaurant. "These people, they see dollar signs, not a person. My fans see a fantasy. The public sees whatever narrative is trending that week." Michael considered this. "So who does see the real you?" A sad smile crossed Justin's face. "My mom, a couple of childhood friends, not many others." He hesitated. "That's why this housing project matters to me. It's something real, something that helps actual people, not just the Justin Bieber brand." The confession shifted something fundamental in Michael's perception. He'd accepted Justin's help, worked alongside him for months, but had still kept him categorized as celebrity benefactor, a one-dimensional figure rather than a complex human being with his own struggles. "For what it's worth," Michael said carefully, "my kids see you as a real person. Especially Sophia. She told me she likes that you answer her questions instead of talking to her like she's just a sick kid." Justin's expression brightened genuinely at this. "Sophia's awesome. Smartest 8-year-old I've ever met." The conversation turned back to the housing project, but something had changed between them. a new layer of understanding that transcended their initial benefactor-recipient dynamic. As they parted ways outside the restaurant, Michael realized that what had begun as a desperate plea for help had evolved into something neither of them had expected. A friendship built on mutual respect and the shared experience of being seen for who they truly were. Like this story? Hit subscribe now to see how Michael and Justin's relationship continues to evolve and transform both their lives. The autumn sunlight filtered through the leaves of palm trees, casting dappled shadows on the outdoor cafe table where Michael sat reviewing building permits. The past 9 months had transformed his life in ways he could never have predicted. The housing project was not only proceeding smoothly, but had gained national attention as a model for celebrity-funded community development that actually served community needs. "Mr. Ramirez," a hesitant voice interrupted his concentration. Michael looked up to see a young Latino man, perhaps 20 years old, clutching a folder and shifting nervously from foot to foot. "Yes, I'm Eduardo Vasquez. I applied for the internship with the East LA housing project. Mr. Bieber's office said I should meet you here." Michael set aside his papers, gesturing for Eduardo to sit. He vaguely recalled approving the internship program but had left the details to HR. "Tell me about yourself, Eduardo." As the young man began speaking, about growing up in the same neighborhoods where they were building, about his community college courses in urban planning, about his dreams of creating affordable housing throughout Los Angeles, Michael experienced a strange sense of déjà vu. Eduardo's passion and determination reminded him of himself at that age, before life's hardships had tempered his ambitions. "Why this project specifically?" Michael asked when Eduardo paused for breath. Eduardo's expression turned earnest. "Because you guys are actually listening to the community instead of steamrolling over it. My abuela's been to every community meeting, and she says it's the first time developers have treated residents like people instead of obstacles." Michael smiled, making a mental note to thank Justin for this unexpected opportunity to pay forward the chance he'd been given. Later that afternoon, Michael arrived at the recording studio where Justin had asked to meet. It was an unusual location for their project discussions, but Justin had texted that he was on a tight schedule and couldn't leave the session. The security guard recognized Michael, nodding him through to a lounge area where Carl stood typing on his phone. "He's just finishing up," Carl explained, leading Michael down a hallway to a control room filled with sound equipment and screens. Through the glass, Justin was in the recording booth, headphones on, completely absorbed in the music only he could hear. Michael watched, fascinated by this glimpse into another side of Justin's life. The singer's expression was intense, with concentration as he listened to playback, occasionally stopping the engineer to request adjustments. This was Justin in his element, not the celebrity persona Michael had first encountered, but an artist dedicated to his craft. When Justin finally emerged from the booth, he greeted Michael with their now customary fist bump. "Sorry for the weird meeting spot. Schedule's insane this week." "No problem," Michael assured him. "I hired the first intern today." Justin's face lit up. "The scholarship program? That's awesome. What's the kid like?" As they discussed Eduardo and the internship initiative, Justin's idea to create pathways for local youth into urban development careers, Michael noticed the singer seemed unusually energized despite the long studio session. "You seem in a good mood," Michael observed. Justin smiled almost shyly. "This album's different. It's more me, less what everyone expects." He hesitated. "Actually, there's something I wanted to run by you, not about the housing project." "Of course," Michael said, surprised. Justin led him to a private office down the hall, closing the door before playing an audio file from his laptop. A song filled the room, more raw and authentic than Justin's usual polished pop, with lyrics about finding purpose beyond fame and fortune. When it ended, Justin looked at Michael expectantly. "What do you think?" "Honestly." Michael considered, carefully, recognizing the trust implicit in the question. "It's good, really good, different from your other stuff, but in a way that feels more genuine." "That's what I thought," Justin said, relieved. "But the label hates it, says it doesn't fit my brand." He made air quotes around the last word. Ray wants me to shelf the whole concept album and go back to making dance tracks. And what do you want? Michael asked. Justin ran a hand through his hair, frustration evident. I want to make music that means something. I'm almost 30, man. I can't keep making the same songs I did at 20. Michael nodded, understanding the dilemma, more than Justin might have expected. Before I worked construction, I was studying architecture, he confessed. Had to drop out when Maria got pregnant with Diego. My father said it was time to get a real job instead of chasing dreams. Justin looked surprised. You never told me that. It's ancient history, Michael shrugged, but I always regretted not fighting harder for it, not believing in myself enough to find a way to make it work. Something shifted in Justin's expression, a new resolve taking shape. So, what would architect Michael tell music producer Justin to do? Michael considered the question seriously. He'd say that creative integrity matters, that living someone else's vision for your life leads to regret, and that sometimes you have to risk failure to create something truly worthwhile. Justin absorbed this, nodding slowly. That's basically what my mom said too. He smiled ruefully. But it hits differently coming from you. Why's that? Michael asked, genuinely curious. Because you've had to make hard choices with real consequences, Justin said simply. When you talk about risk, you know what you're talking about in a way most people in my life don't. The conversation shifted to the housing project, but Michael sensed that something important had transpired, a subtle rebalancing of their relationship. He had begun as the recipient of Justin's generosity, then become his employee and eventually his friend. But now, unexpectedly, he had also become something of a mentor. As they wrapped up their meeting, Justin mentioned casually, "Hey, Sophia's birthday's coming up, right? I had this idea, if it's okay with you." Sophia's 9th birthday dawned clear and bright, the October sky a perfect California blue. Michael watched his daughter flit around their new apartment, a spacious 3-bedroom in the same neighborhood, but with working air conditioning and no mold in the bathroom, directing Diego and Carmen in the placement of balloons and streamers. The past year had brought stability Michael had stopped believing possible. Sophia's health continued to improve. Diego had started at UCLA with a combination of scholarships and Michael's savings, and Michael himself had been promoted to oversee all of Justin's West Coast housing initiatives. "Papa, is it time yet?" Sophia asked for the 5th time that morning, her dark eyes sparkling with excitement. She wore her special birthday dress, a purple confection with sequins that caught the light as she moved, and the butterfly clips Justin had sent from his tour in Japan. "Almost, Mika," Michael assured her, checking his watch. "The party's not until 11. Sophia had been told they were having her birthday at the community center, where friends from school and the neighborhood would join them. What she didn't know was that Justin had arranged something special, though Michael had insisted on keeping it relatively modest. He wanted Sophia to have a memorable birthday, not an extravagant celebrity-style bash that would set unrealistic expectations for the future. When they arrived at the community center, Sophia's mouth dropped open. The entire space had been transformed into an underwater wonderland, her current obsession, with shimmering blue and green fabric draped from the ceiling, life-sized cardboard sea creatures, and bubble machines creating a magical atmosphere. "Papa, it's like we're really under the ocean," Sophia gasped, taking in the decorations. Michael smiled, knowing this was just the beginning. As Sophia's friends arrived and the party got underway, he exchanged glances with Carmen, who nodded slightly, their signal that everything was proceeding according to plan. The children were in the middle of a sea-themed scavenger hunt when the community center's door opened, and Justin Bieber walked in, accompanied by a single security guard who remained discreetly by the entrance. A hush fell over the room, followed by excited whispers from both children and parents. Sophia, who had been searching behind a cardboard coral reef, turned to see what had caused the commotion. Her eyes widened comically. "Justin!" she shrieked, running toward him with the uninhibited joy only children can express. Justin knelt to receive her hug, laughing at her enthusiasm. "Happy birthday, Sophia. Is it okay if I crash your party?" Sophia nodded vigorously, already pulling him by the hand to show him the decorations. completely unfazed by his celebrity status. To her, he wasn't a world-famous pop star, but simply her father's friend who asked interesting questions and remembered what she liked. Michael watched from across the room, a complex mixture of emotions washing over him. The Justin who had arrived was not the polished, camera-ready celebrity, but the more authentic version Michael had come to know. Dressed simply in jeans and a hoodie, hair slightly messy, his smile genuine rather than performed. The most remarkable thing was how quickly the initial shock of Justin's presence wore off. After the first 15 minutes of excitement, the children resumed their games, now with an enthusiastic Justin participating as if he were just another adult helper. He helped kids find hidden treasure, joined in a spirited round of musical chairs, deliberately losing to one of Sophia's shyer friends, and displayed surprising skill at pinning the tentacle on the octopus while blindfolded. Parents who had initially reached for their phones to record the celebrity encounter gradually relaxed, some even engaging Justin in normal conversation about the neighborhood or their children's shared interests. During a lull in the activities, Justin approached Michael, who was refilling the punch bowl. "This was a great idea," the singer said, looking genuinely happy. "Thanks for letting me come." "Thanks for keeping it low-key," Michael replied. "You made her day special without making it about—" He gestured vaguely, "all the other stuff." Justin nodded, understanding. "That's what I liked about the idea too, just being a normal person for a while." He glanced around the community center. "You know, I never had birthday parties like this as a kid. By the time I could afford them, I was too famous to have anything normal." Before Michael could respond, Sophia bounded up, tugging at Justin's hand. "It's cake time. You have to come sing with us." As everyone gathered around the sea-themed cake Carmen had spent days perfecting, Michael watched his daughter's face glowing with happiness in the light of 9 candles. The assembled group began singing "Happy Birthday" with Justin's trained voice harmonizing naturally, adding a musical richness to the simple song. Sophia closed her eyes tight, made her wish, and blew out all the candles in one determined breath. The crowd cheered, and Carmen began cutting slices of the blue and green cake. "What did you wish for?" Justin asked Sophia playfully as she received the first piece. "I can't tell, or it won't come true," she replied seriously. "But it wasn't for anything for me. I already got everything I wanted." "Everything?" Justin looked surprised. Sophia nodded solemnly. "My papa doesn't look sad anymore. Diego gets to go to college. I'm not sick." She ticked off each item on her small fingers. "And now you came to my party." She beamed at him. "So my wish was for someone else." The simple wisdom in her words seemed to touch something in Justin. He knelt to Sophia's level, his expression unusually solemn. "You're a very special person, Sofia Ramirez. I'm really glad I know you." After cake, Justin surprised everyone by pulling out a guitar that his security guard had brought in. "I heard Sophia likes singing," he said, looking at Michael for permission. Michael nodded, and Justin began playing a gentle acoustic version of one of his hits, inviting Sophia to sing along. Soon, other children joined in, creating an impromptu sing-along that had parents pulling out phones to capture the moment. As the party wound down and guests began to leave, many stopped to thank Michael, their expressions conveying more than their words. In a neighborhood where financial struggles were common and celebrity sightings non-existent, Justin's presence, and more importantly, his genuine engagement, had created a memory that would last a lifetime, not just for Sophia, but for everyone present. Later, as they packed up decorations, Justin helped fold tables while chatting easily with Carmen in his limited Spanish. Sophia had fallen asleep on a chair, exhausted from excitement and sugar, a serene smile on her face. "Thank you," Michael said quietly to Justin, "not just for today, but for everything. You changed our lives." Justin looked at him thoughtfully. "You know, I came into this thinking I was helping you, but man, you've helped me just as much." He glanced at Sophia's sleeping form. "You and your family reminded me of what matters, what's real." As they carried the last boxes to Michael's car, the setting sun painted the sky in shades of orange and pink. Justin looked up at it, seeming reluctant to leave. "I'm going on tour next month," he said finally. "The album we talked about, the one the label didn't want? I'm releasing it anyway, standing up for my vision." Michael smiled, feeling a surge of pride for his friend's courage. "Good for you. That's the right choice." "I hope so," Justin replied, uncertainty briefly crossing his features. "It's a risk." "The best things usually are," Michael said with the confidence of someone who had taken a desperate risk that had transformed his life. As Justin's security detail pulled up to take him away, Sophia stirred and woke up just in time to say goodbye. Justin knelt for one more hug. "Thank you for coming to my Real People party," she said sleepily. Justin laughed. "Best party I've been to in years. Real people are the best kind." The exclusive Hollywood club pulsed with energy, a carefully curated crowd of industry insiders, celebrities, and media filling the space for Justin Bieber's album release party. Crystal chandeliers cast a warm glow over the gathering, while staff in black tie carried trays of champagne and hors d'oeuvres through the stylishly dressed attendees. Michael stood near the bar, feeling out of place despite his new suit, purchased at Justin's insistence for the occasion. Diego, now in his second semester at UCLA, seemed more at ease, eagerly taking in the surroundings with the adaptability of youth. "Can you believe we're actually here?" Diego murmured, nodding toward a famous actor across the room. 2 years ago we were getting eviction notices, and now—" Michael nodded, still processing the surreal trajectory their lives had taken. When Justin had insisted he attend tonight's launch, "You helped make this album happen, man. You need to be there." Michael had initially resisted, uncomfortable with the celebrity world. But Justin had been adamant, even sending a car service to bring Michael and Diego to the event. The music faded and conversations hushed as Justin appeared on the small stage at the center of the club. Unlike the casual, authentic Justin that Michael had come to know, tonight he was in full star mode, designer clothes, perfect hair, practiced smile. Yet when his eyes met Michael's across the room, there was a flash of the real person behind the polished exterior. "Thank you all for coming," Justin began, his voice carrying easily through the venue. "This album is different from anything I've done before. It's more personal, more honest." He paused, seeming to choose his words carefully. "For a long time, I was making music that other people wanted me to make. Music that sold, that fit expectations. This album breaks that pattern." A murmur ran through the crowd, part excitement, part uncertainty. The music industry thrived on formula and predictability. Artistic risks were often celebrated in theory, but punished in practice. "I want to thank some people who helped make this possible," Justin continued. "My mom, who always believed in me. My team, who supported this vision even when it wasn't the easy path." His gaze found Michael again. "And some newer friends who reminded me what authenticity looks like." The stage lights dimmed, and the opening. Notes of the album's first single filled the space, a contemplative, mature sound that represented a significant departure from Justin's previous work. As the music played, Justin made his way through the crowd toward Michael and Diego. "What do you think?" he asked them, a hint of vulnerability beneath the confident exterior. "It's incredible," Diego said immediately, his admiration evident. "Way different from your other stuff, but in a good way." "Really good," Michael agreed sincerely. "It sounds like you." Relief flashed across Justin's face. "The critics are divided. Some love it, some think I'm committing career suicide." He shrugged. "But for the first time in years, I feel good about what I'm putting out there." Before they could continue the conversation, a sleek, silver-haired executive, Ray, whom Michael recognized from their lunch months ago, appeared at Justin's elbow. "There you are." Ray's voice was jovial, but his eyes were calculating. "The Spotify executive wants to talk streaming numbers. Need you over there, pronto." His gaze flicked dismissively over Michael and Diego. "Excuse us, gentlemen." Justin hesitated, clearly reluctant to be pulled away. "I'll find you guys later," he promised before allowing himself to be steered toward a group of important-looking people across the room. Left alone, Michael and Diego observed the crowd, witnessing the strange choreography of celebrity, the air kisses, the strategic conversations, the constant awareness of who was watching whom. It was fascinating and exhausting all at once. "Dad," Diego said suddenly, his voice low with excitement. "Isn't that the director of the UCLA Urban Planning Program? The one whose class I couldn't get into because it was full?" Michael followed his son's gaze to a distinguished woman in knee, her 60s deep in conversation near the appetizer table. "I think so. Why?" Diego straightened his tie nervously. "I should introduce myself, right? This might be my only chance." Michael smiled at his son's initiative. "Absolutely. Go for it." As Diego worked up his courage and approached the professor, Michael found himself alone, observing the room. Across the crowd he could see Justin performing his celebrity role flawlessly, laughing at the right moments, giving the right sound bites to reporters, posing for strategic photos. Yet Michael could now detect the subtle signs of the mask Justin wore in these situations, so different from the person he became in more private moments. "You must be Michael," a gentle voice interrupted his thoughts. He turned to find a woman in her 50s with Justin's eyes and warm smile. "And you must be Justin's mom," he replied, recognizing her from photos he'd seen. Patty Bieber offered her hand. "Justin talks about you and your family all the time. I feel like I already know you." "He talks about you too," Michael said, genuinely, pleased to meet the woman who had raised Justin with such strong values, despite the distorting influence of fame. "This album," she said, gesturing to where Justin's music still played in the background, "is the most authentic work he's done in years. He credits you with helping him find the courage to push back against the label." Michael shook his head, modestly. "I didn't do anything special, just spoke my mind." "That's exactly what was special," Patty replied. "In Justin's world, most people tell him what they think he wants to hear. You told him what he needed to hear." She glanced toward her son across the room. "Fame is a strange prison. People think it's all freedom and privilege, but it comes with invisible bars." Michael followed her gaze, seeing the scene with new clarity. For all the glamour and excitement of the evening, there was something performative about it, a carefully constructed illusion rather than a genuine celebration. "He's a good person," Michael said simply, "behind all of this." Patty's eyes crinkled with her smile. "Yes, he is, and he's lucky to have found a friend who sees that." Later that night, as the party reached its peak, Justin managed to break away from his industry obligations to rejoin Michael and Diego. To their surprise, he led them to a private exit and into a waiting car. "Where are we going?" Diego asked, as they pulled away from the club. "In-N-Out Burger," Justin answered, loosening his tie with evident relief. "My real album release tradition. The party's for everyone else. This is for me." 20 minutes later, the unlikely trio sat in a corner, booth of the fast food restaurant, Justin having swapped his designer jacket for a hoodie and baseball cap that provided a thin disguise. They devoured burgers and fries, talking about the album, Diego's architecture classes, and Sophia's latest science project. "This is way better than champagne and fancy appetizers," Justin declared, dunking a fry in ketchup. "Agreed," Michael said, watching his son and his unexpected friend debate the merits of different In-N-Out secret menu items with animated enthusiasm. As they ate, occasional fans approached for autographs or photos, which Justin accommodated with genuine warmth. Yet it was the moments between these interruptions that struck Michael most deeply. The visible relaxation in Justin's posture, the unguarded laughter, the absence of the performative persona he'd witnessed at the club. "The album's going to succeed," Michael said confidently as they finished their meal. "Maybe not in the way the label measures success, but in the ways that matter." Justin considered this, wiping his hands on a napkin. "You know what? You're right. For the first time in my career, I'm not obsessing over chart positions or sales figures. I made something real, something I believe in." He looked between Michael and Diego. "That's what you guys taught me, that real success isn't about the money or the fame. It's about creating something meaningful, something authentic." "I think we've all taught each other things," Michael replied, thinking about how far they'd all come since that desperate day outside the Beverly Hills Hotel. As they headed back to the car, Justin turned to Michael. "The housing project's official opening is next month. I want Sophia to cut the ribbon with me. Would that be okay?" The question, asked with genuine uncertainty, as if Michael might refuse, reminded him of how much their relationship had balanced over time. What had begun as charity had evolved into partnership, then friendship, and finally a mutual exchange of influence and support that benefited them both. "She'd love that," Michael answered, already imagining his daughter's excitement. "We all would." If you're enjoying this story of unexpected friendship and transformation, hit subscribe now. The final chapters will reveal how Michael and Justin's relationship transforms both their lives in profound and surprising ways. The crowd gathered at the entrance to the new housing development was larger than expected. A mix of future residents, community members, local officials, and media drawn by Justin Bieber's involvement. A ribbon stretched across the entrance to the modern yet welcoming complex. 5 buildings arranged around a central courtyard with a playground and community garden. Michael stood to the side of the small stage that had been erected for the occasion, watching as Justin and Sophia chatted animatedly while waiting for the ceremony to begin. His daughter, now nearly 10, showed no signs of the illness that had once threatened her life. Her cheeks were flushed with excitement, her energy boundless as she practiced holding the oversized ceremonial scissors that looked comically large in her small hands. The journey to this moment had been long, and at times difficult. Construction delays, permit issues, and community concerns had all needed to be addressed. But the result was something truly special. Affordable housing that didn't look or feel like typical affordable housing, with thoughtful amenities, energy-efficient design, and spaces created for community building rather than just maximizing units. As the ceremony began, the local councilwoman gave a brief speech praising the project as a model for future developments. When it was Justin's turn to speak, he surprised Michael by calling him to the stage. "This project wouldn't exist without Michael Ramirez," Justin said, his voice carrying across the gathered crowd. He was the bridge between vision and reality, between celebrity good intentions and actual community needs. Michael reluctantly joined him at the podium, uncomfortable with the attention, but moved by the recognition. "2 years ago, Michael approached me with a letter," Justin continued, looking out at the audience. He wasn't asking for a handout. He was asking for a chance to work, to provide for his family, to use his skills and knowledge. What could have been a simple transaction, money given, problem solved, turned into something much more meaningful for both of us. Justin turned to Michael. "You taught me the difference between charity and investment in people, in communities, in potential. This project isn't just buildings. It's a testament to what happens when we see each other as full human beings, not just problems to solve or opportunities to exploit." The crowd applauded warmly, many of the community members nodding in agreement. Michael spotted Carmen and Diego in the front row, pride evident in their expressions. When Justin handed him the microphone, Michael took a deep breath, finding unexpected steadiness in the moment. "When my family was at its lowest point, I thought I was just looking for financial help," he began. "But what we really found was something far more valuable, a reminder that we're all connected, that compassion doesn't have to be condescending, and that true generosity is about seeing people's potential, not just their problems." He gestured to the buildings behind them. 52 families will live here, paying rents they can afford while staying in the neighborhood they call home. Their children will play in that playground. Seniors will tend that community garden. And most importantly, people who have been invisible to developers for decades will know that their needs and their community matter. When he finished speaking, the applause was heartfelt. Justin signaled for Sophia to join them, and together, the three of them cut the ribbon, officially, opening the development that would bear both their legacies: Justin's financial investment and visionary support, Michael's practical knowledge and community connections, and Sophia's inspiration as the spark that had brought them together. After the ceremony, as residents and visitors toured the complex, Michael found himself standing alone for a moment, taking in the culmination of 2 years of work. One of the apartments had been reserved for his family at Justin's insistence, though Michael had declined, feeling it should go to someone with greater need. Still, seeing the finished project filled him with a profound sense of accomplishment. "Quite a view, isn't it?" Justin's voice came from behind him. Michael turned. It's more than I ever imagined when I wrote that letter. For me too, Justin admitted, joining him in gazing at the complex. You know, I've been thinking a lot about what's next. For the project? For both of us, Justin clarified. I've been approached about similar developments in other cities. There's real interest in this model, celebrity funding paired with genuine community engagement. Michael nodded, having heard some of these discussions. I want to expand, Justin continued. Not just housing, but community centers, arts programs, entrepreneurship initiatives in underserved areas. He looked at Michael directly. And I want you to run the foundation. Michael stared at him, processing the offer. What foundation? The one I'm establishing. The board's already approved the initial funding. Justin smiled at Michael's surprised expression. What? You thought I'd just move on to the next shiny project? This matters. It works, and I need someone I trust to lead it, someone who understands both the business side and the human side. Before Michael could respond, they were joined by Carmen, Diego, and Sophia, all buzzing with excitement from touring the buildings. Did you see the community room, Papa? Sophia asked, tugging at his hand. It has a piano and art supplies for kids. And the rooftop garden, Diego added. The environmental engineering is incredible. Michael looked at his family, healthy, hopeful, thriving, and then at Justin, who waited patiently for his answer. The journey that had begun with a desperate plea had led to this moment of possibility that extended far beyond his own family's needs. I'd be honored, he said finally, extending his hand to Justin, who bypassed it for a hug instead. Yes, Sophia cheered, clearly having been in on the secret. As Justin was called away for photos, Carmen squeezed Michael's arm. Maria would be so proud of you, she said softly in Spanish. Not just for providing for the family, but for helping others too. Michael nodded, emotion tightening his throat. From the depths of desperation to the leadership of a foundation that would help thousands, it was a journey he could never have imagined that day outside the Beverly Hills Hotel. Diego, now taller than his father and carrying himself with the confidence of a young man finding his path, put his arm around Michael's shoulders. So I guess Justin Bieber asking for help wasn't the worst idea you ever had, huh, Dad? Michael laughed, remembering his own doubts and pride. I guess not, he conceded, watching as Sophia joined Justin for more photos, the two of them hamming it up for the cameras with identical grins. Sometimes asking for help is the strongest thing you can do. And sometimes, Carmen added wisely, the help you receive becomes the help you give to others. As the afternoon sun bathed the new buildings in golden light, Michael took in the scene. Community members exploring their future homes, children already playing in the courtyard, elderly residents admiring the garden spaces. This wasn't just a housing development, it was a vision of what was possible when privilege met potential, when celebrity met sincerity, when desperate need transformed into determined purpose. And it had all begun with a man at his lowest point, a handwritten letter, and 15 seconds of courage outside a luxury hotel. 5 years had passed since the ribbon-cutting ceremony. The Bieber Community Initiative had grown from a single housing project in East Los Angeles to a nationwide foundation with developments in 15 cities, arts programs in underserved schools, entrepreneurship incubators in low-income communities, and a reputation for genuine impact rather than celebrity vanity. Michael, now the executive director, stood at the podium in a ballroom filled with donors, community partners, and beneficiaries for the foundation's 5th anniversary gala. Behind him, a video montage showed the journey from that first housing complex to their current scope, intercut with stories of families whose lives had been changed, children finding their voice through arts programs, entrepreneurs launching businesses, communities transformed by thoughtful investment. When I wrote a letter to Justin Bieber 5 years ago, Michael began, his voice steady with the confidence he'd developed over years of public speaking, I wasn't thinking about creating a foundation. I wasn't thinking about policy change or scalable models of community development. I was thinking about my daughter's medical bills and our eviction notice. I was a desperate father with nowhere else to turn. The audience was silent, captivated by the story many had heard pieces of but never in full. What happened next changed, not just my family's life, but thousands of lives across this country. Michael gestured to the tables where residents from various foundation projects sat alongside wealthy donors and celebrities. And it all began with one person choosing to see another person, not as a charity case, not as a public relations opportunity, but as a human being with dignity, potential, and purpose. From his seat at the front table, Justin Bieber watched Michael with evident pride. Now in his mid-30s, the singer had evolved both artistically and personally. His music more mature, his public image transformed from teen idol to respected artist and philanthropist. The foundation had become as much a part of his legacy as his music. "Tonight we celebrate 5 years of growth," Michael continued. 5 years of learning what works and what doesn't. 5 years of building trust in communities that have every reason to be skeptical of outsiders bearing promises. He paused, gathering himself for the announcement that had been months in the planning. "And tonight, I'm honored to announce the Bieber Initiative's most ambitious project yet, a $50 million commitment to create integrated arts, housing, and entrepreneurship centers in 10 more cities over the next 3 years, with priority given to communities facing economic transition or recovery from natural disasters." Applause rippled through the room as Michael detailed the vision for these new developments, each tailored to local needs rather than imposed from above. As he spoke, he caught Sophia's eye, now 15 and blossoming into a poised young woman, with her mother's artistic talent and his own determination. Beside her sat Diego, recently graduated from UCLA's architecture program and already a rising talent at a firm specializing in community-focused design. When Michael concluded his speech, the room rose in a standing ovation. He made his way back to the table where his family sat with Justin and Patty, who had become like extended family over the years. Sophia hugged him tightly. "That was amazing, Papa," she whispered. The evening continued with performances from artists supported by the Foundation's programs and testimonials from community members whose lives had been touched by its work. Through it all, Michael observed Justin, noticing how the singer seemed unusually reflective, almost nostalgic. Later, as the gala wound down and guests began to depart, Justin pulled Michael aside to a quiet corner of the ballroom. "There's something I never told you," Justin said, his expression serious, "about the day you approached me at the hotel." Michael raised an eyebrow, curious. "What about it?" Justin looked slightly embarrassed. "You know how I told you I read your letter and was impressed by your request for work instead of a handout?" "Yeah, well, that was true," Justin said quickly, "but there's more to it." He took a deep breath. "That day, I almost didn't stop. Carl was pulling me inside, saying we were running late. Standard procedure was to ignore people trying to hand things to me." Michael listened, surprised by this revelation. "But then you shouted about your daughter," Justin continued, "and something hit me hard. My mom and I had been talking the night before about how disconnected I'd become from real people with real problems, how all my charity work was just writing checks to foundations without ever seeing the impact." He looked Michael directly in the eyes. "When you called out, it felt like, I don't know, like fate or something. Like the universe was testing whether I meant what I'd said to my mom about wanting to make more meaningful connections." Michael absorbed this information, seeing their initial encounter in a new light. "So when I tell people you changed my life," Justin said earnestly, "I'm not exaggerating. If I had walked past you that day, kept living in my bubble, I don't know where I'd be now, but I wouldn't have this." He gestured to the room, to the evidence of their shared work. "I wouldn't have found purpose beyond just making music and money." The revelation touched Michael deeply. For years, he'd carried a sense of gratitude for Justin's generosity that day. To learn that their encounter had been as pivotal for Justin as it had been for him created a sense of balance, of mutual transformation. "I had no idea," Michael said finally. Justin smiled. "That's because you never saw yourself as someone who could change things for other people. You were too busy trying to solve your own problems." He placed a hand on Michael's shoulder. "But that's exactly what made you the right person to lead this foundation. You understand both sides, the desperate need and the potential for growth beyond it." As they rejoined their families, Michael felt a sense of completion, of coming full circle. The desperate father who had once waited outside a hotel with a handwritten letter had become a leader helping others find their way out of similar circumstances. The celebrity who had stopped to listen had discovered purpose beyond fame and wealth. "What's next for us?" Justin asked as they watched Sophia laughing with Patty across the room. Michael considered the question, knowing it encompassed more than just the Foundation's future projects. It spoke to the ongoing evolution of their unlikely friendship, their shared vision, and their individual journeys. "I think," he said thoughtfully, "we keep remembering what brought us here. That behind every statistic is a person with a story, that the most meaningful changes happen one relationship at a time, and that sometimes the biggest transformations begin with the smallest moments of connection." Justin nodded, satisfaction evident in his expression. "From that first housing project to all of this," he mused, gesturing around them, "and to think it all started because a man with debt issues asked Justin Bieber for help." "And Justin Bieber actually listened," Michael added with a smile. As the evening came to a close, with Sophia and Diego helping the Foundation staff organize the last details, Michael found himself alone for a moment, reflecting on the journey. From the depths of desperation to the height of purpose, from seeking help to providing it, his life had transformed in ways he could never have imagined. And it had all begun with 15 seconds of courage, a desperate plus and the unexpected revelation that sometimes when we reach out for help, we end up helping others in ways that extend far beyond anything we could have planned or predicted. The end.